Hey, Cecil.
Hey, Bill.
It's good to see you, buddy.
You too, man. Good to be back.
Yeah, it's real good to be back. I've been, lots been going on, and I've been missing this.
Me too. Although I've been a bit preoccupied with my shoulder surgery.
Yep.
And very distracted for about 2 weeks, to say the least. And then the past week has mellowed out quite a bit, so I can get around a lot better. And I can actually move my arm in the direction it's supposed to be moved. I'm not allowed to move it only one direction is all, but or I am allowed to move it only in one direction is what I was trying to say. But anyways, folks, you want to hit that button?
Yeah,
and
sure.
we'll just jump right in here, folks. Folks, we got Cecil and Bill here today with Aberrations in the Wild, and we're gonna play some sounds for you. Got them in the background right now so you can hear them coming up. And we're going to go back and start that over again and let them play raw so you can hear them and hear it for yourself. Bill, you got something to say to that?
Yeah, today we have a series of sounds. These are called the Sierra sounds. I've mentioned them on the podcast before. This was Ron Moorhead and Barry, his name escapes me right now. Ron Moorhead and so they were in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Al Berry was the other guy's name. Ron Moorhead and Al Berry. Yeah. They're in the Sierra Nevada mountains, and they're basically setting up camp. They're cooking some chili or whatever, and they see across the ridge, so they're on one side, there's a little valley, and they see some movement on the other side. Looks like a couple of Bigfoot to them. Now, they were not looking for Bigfoot. They were just out there, and the Bigfoot called to them, and they called back, and they almost have a conversation, right?
Yeah.
And you can make what you will of that part of it. The thing is, they went back and they recorded a lot. And we have 3 clips today. There's a whole lot, but we have 3. The first one is the longest. The second one's shorter. The third one is even the shortest, and they also get progressively more interesting as we go. The very first one, I know a lot of you are going to say that's just a person making those noises, and it could be on that first one. I don't think so. There's a military linguist that has broken this down. The first one is interesting because the sounds are made on exhale as well as inhale, and we've talked a lot about frequencies, audio frequencies, and hearing things that go above and below what we can hear, and that type of thing is going to come into play as we go through these clips, and they're also going to get cleaner. And finally, with the last clip, you can almost hear words, and it's done in such a way that the human vocal cords can't do it. So that's kind of interesting.
All right.
We'll kind of talk about that after we play it.
Well, let's hear
the first one? All right. This one is a little, it's almost a little scary. My 9-year-old son listened to it, and he was like, I don't like that. In fact, our producer, she didn't like it either. So we're going to go ahead and just play that now, and then we can talk about it a little bit. So this is the Sierra Sounds. There's supposed to be 2 there. 2 different creatures.
Sounds like it to me.
To me, it almost has like a dog growl there at the end, which is kind of interesting when we factor in Dogman, of course. But that Dogman is not being claimed in this case. They're actually not claiming it was a Bigfoot when this happened. What do you notice about those sounds, Cecil?
I noticed what sounded like syllables to words. Some of it was less distinct, but some of it was, to me, sounded pretty strongly like communication of some kind.
Right.
I've been reading a book called Shelter of Stones by Gene Aul, and one of the things that they talk about in these prehistoric novels that I read are the Neanderthals. They call them the Mamatoi, I think they called them in the book. And they called them the Clan, and they called them Flatheads. And then
I had $1 for every time I've been called a flathead.
Yeah, me too. But then the main characters in this book are of the what they call the others, that the Clan calls the others, and they have structured language, fairly clear, and so forth. And of course, the book is written in English, but heaven only knows what language they actually spoke. Mm-hmm. But they had some form of language, and they talked about in this book the sounds that the Neanderthal or Flatheads Clan makes, and they used hand signals a lot, but they also made guttural sounds similar to what we're hearing in this playback here. I don't know that they were just exactly like that, and of course I don't know how anyone can tell that for absolute sure, but that is the running story with it. And so with all that in mind, with all of it and carrying over into today, with the potential of Sasquatch being real and being able to speak, having some intelligence, there's all kinds of rumors about it. So I think there is at least potentially something there.
I agree with you. Gorillas and monkeys can communicate by smacking the ground. We've talked about that. Rabbits as well. Monkeys will also do tree breaks, which I think is an interesting concept to talk about in the future show. I have a couple notes on that. But animals communicate. They do. All animals communicate. Now, they don't all have language, but they all communicate. I think if Bigfoot is out there, whether you consider it a primate, just an ape, or a human offshoot or something different altogether, it's got to have a language. You can't be that elusive and survive this long without being able to communicate. What does that look like? It probably looks like a combination of all of those things that we talked about, the sounds, the tree breaks, the different things, as well as things that we don't even understand. We may be looking at Sasquatch communication all the time and not even know it because we're not looking for it.
Correct.
So you ready to hear the second one?
Yes.
Now, the second one, I like the second one. It sounds similar to the first one, but give it a listen. This is a little more refined. So imagine over time you're building communication with a creature or a person. Let's say you're building communication with a person that doesn't speak English. I found myself in this situation with a girl from China when I was in junior high school. Her family moved here, and she didn't speak any English. And she was in a class that I was in, and most of my job was getting to know her to help her facilitate her English. And it started with basic hi.
Yeah.
And from there, we built this. I mean, I didn't teach her English. I just talked to her.
Right.
And the class taught her English, but she used it with me in general conversation. And it was really fascinating to see that build. So with that in mind, the second one is a little more complex, almost like you're learning what you're listening to, okay?
Yes.
Those throaty sounds. It's almost doing like a falsetto, but down low.
I'm not even sure I could even do that flutter in my throat like that. I know I couldn't do it without using my hand, and I'm not sure I could do it with my hand.
So they're getting more complex as we go. The next one, humans can't do. This one, I think we probably could. I think we probably could fake it. I don't know that we could make that sound, but we could probably fake it if we wanted to, if we tried real hard. And did you notice it repeats the same type of sound?
Yes.
It does the same similar thing over and over, but it doesn't sound like a loop. It doesn't sound like that sound has been recorded and played over. It's a similar sound. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm saying that same thing. You know what I mean? Different pitches, but it's clearly the same thing. What do you think about that one?
Same thing.
Okay.
Clearly, some sort of syllables language of some kind. I can't make it out, but there's something there.
Now the last one we have is probably from these three clips. Now there's a lot of clips from these two guys, and these guys are pretty reputable. I almost had a whole show built around reputable investigators like Jeff Meldrum. Mm-hmm. A lot of researchers, I think they hear someone's name and they don't know that this person has, a doctorate behind their name. It's not just some guy that lives in mountains. It's like, yeah, I saw Bigfoot. No, he's a professor at Idaho State University. Now, Ron Moorhead, he is not, but this is also a reputable guy. So the last one, I want to say something about the clip before we listen to it. So this one, there's a military linguist, basically a code breaker. They break down, coded speech to try to pull codes out of, other people's languages, whatever.
Right.
They say this you cannot do. A person cannot do because you're going to hear syllables, you're going to hear consonants, and you're also going to hear where I talked about the voice on the exhale as well as the inhale of the speech. And to me, this one is clearly conversive. So here we go. This is the third clip. Think of looking at an ape in the zoo. You hear how it's inside and out?
Yeah. Wow. That was pretty incredible. You're not going to convince me that's not language.
Yeah, 100% language. I think. Who knows what it's saying? It doesn't sound happy, but then again, we can't even interpret that.
Well, the thing about it is about language. If I know zero Chinese or Japanese for that matter, and if I go to China or Japan and hear them speak in their natural environment, I'm not going to have the foggiest idea what they're saying or what their meaning is. None of the words are going to gel with me until I've heard them maybe 10 or 15 times. Things will start to register a little bit as distinctive words, but I'm still not going to know what they are until I can see what they're put in context with. And not having anything to put this in context with, it's just plain not possible to understand it. But it's also, to me, completely clear that is some form of language. They're saying something. They're implying some kind of meaning and trying to transfer it to one to another.
I think it would have been interesting had I not told you what we were playing. I mean, obviously the podcast, we know what we're talking about here, but had I just played that and said, what are we listening to? I think most people would have said, well, that's a monkey, or that's a gorilla or whatever, until I told you that it was in Nevada.
Well, the thing about that is that I did hear some stuff in it that sounded monkey-like,
mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm not a naturalist. I've not been out in the jungle with actual monkeys in the wild and
That'd
things
be great,
like that.
though, wouldn't it?
But that would be kind of cool. But I have watched a lot of nature shows, and I do mean a lot of them. And when I hear the sounds there that sounded monkey-like, they sounded monkey-like, not just like monkeys.
Right.
And I heard distinct differences along with some similarities. But then, of course, if you go to Arabic, and English, you're going to hear some similarities, but you still won't be able to tell what they are. And then, of course, one of the wildest things I think about human language is that there's so many languages that mom and dad are there in some form or another. Mama, papa, mommy, daddy, da, ma, and hillbillies, ma and pa. And those come
Me,
from
mom, papa.
Yeah, and those ma and pa comes from other languages that were spoken across the sea and carried over, and that's what a lot of folks don't realize about Southerners. Just kind of sidetrack a little bit, is that a lot of their slang, so-called slang words that we call hillbilly slang, are actually words from aristocrat language in other countries, and just carried over here and used in different ways.
You can follow that progression by listening to the music. And as I get older, I realize this: if you listen to a good Celtic song, a good Irish dirge, or however they pronounce it, and then you listen to a bluegrass tune, it's the same music with different instruments.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So with this one, I want us to listen to this one again here in just a moment. So it's been speculated, and there is a backstory. Oh, we were doing this and we did that. I'm not interested in that because it's hearsay. I don't know. It's somebody's claiming what happened. So I just have the sound. The sound speaks for itself.
Right.
If you think of maybe a juvenile, like a teenager, say a teenage ape or something like that, wanting to do something or being a little too verbal or outspoken during daytime, maybe. And then you've also got dad who's going, no. If you listen to it that way and listen to it again, it could pass for almost a disciplinarian with someone who's trying to get out of control, or just. The reason I come to this, do you know who Mila Kunis is?
Say what now?
Do you know who Mila Kunis is?
I have no idea what you just said.
Do you know who Mila Kunis?
Oh, yes.
Okay, she's Ukrainian,
Yeah.
and she talks about when she's on the phone with her mother, and the conversation with her mom is, "Mom, I love you so much. I miss you," and they're speaking, Russian or whatever. Tell Daddy I said hi. Very sweet. And Ashton's going, "Is everything okay?" Yeah. Because it sounds like, she refers to it as sounding like Klingon. The reason I bring that up is the inflections in the tones, if you think of it in a different manner, can take on a whole different perception of what you're hearing. So let's listen to it one more time.
Yep.
This time, think about all the different possibilities of what could be going on.
Yep. I'm ready for that. Yeah, I heard that little high pitched section there sounds almost subservient.
Like one's trying to talk back a little, but also being subservient at the same time.
Right. Yeah, and he's speaking, but Dad, kind of,
And Dad's going, I said no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
whatever,
The backstory to that goes along with that theory.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and give it. I said I wasn't going to give it, but I'm going to go ahead and give it.
Do it.
They were cooking chili, and the way it was interpreted basically is the juvenile saying, "Dad, there's food right there. Let's go get the food." Mm-hmm. And Dad's like, "No, we do not go down there." And the young guy's saying, "But Dad," and the old guy's saying, "No."
Right.
And it does come to a point later, and I want to review this one with Cecil before we put it up on the podcast, maybe for next week, where you have some call and answer. So the guys are calling, the Bigfoot makes a noise, and then the guys repeat the noise back to the Bigfoot.
Right.
And it sounds like the Bigfoot is saying something and expecting an answer, but the people are just repeating back what it says. And so you're like, "Hello," and then the guy goes, "Hello," and you're like, "What's your name?" And the other guy goes, "What's your name?" And you're like, "Wait a minute, you're just repeating me." And then you can almost hear the Bigfoot get a little frustrated. But I wanted to run that by you before we post it.
Okay, cool. Can't wait to hear that one.
So with these sounds, I spent a lot of time the last few nights. So I work nights. For those of you that don't know, I work nights. I'm a nurse. Spend a lot of time with earbud in my ear in our building. It's an assisted living facility, so I'm not like, dodging anybody when I'm doing it. But I listen to a lot of sounds, and there's some junk out there, Cecil. There's some stuff that's just not, like you say, when you find the clips and then you realize it's just BS, and it's very frustrating.
Yeah, very.
But you stumble across some clips like this one, and you research it and you listen to where it's broken down, and they actually put up graphs showing you why this can't be a person.
Right.
Once you rule out a person, now, of course, you have to listen to that scientist or that linguist or that, audiologist. I'm going to take their word for it just because they have that "ist" after their name. Yep. We're just guys sitting in a studio. But those guys, they're saying you can't do it. Once you rule out a person, and then you add in geography, so it's not a person, it's in Nevada. there's not a lot else that would even fit the bill. It wasn't an elk.
It was not an elk.
It wasn't a wolf. It wasn't, you hear coyote. That was not a coyote. I've heard coyote, fox. I did hear elk as a potential. What else did I hear? It's not a coyote. It's not a fox. It's not a rabbit in distress. It's not a bird. It's not a dog.
Now, dog, the thing about the dog sounds is that I've heard dogs that can mouth words. Okay, Now I don't know that they're actually speaking those words, but they can mouth them.
Yeah, they can
mimic,
and
it sounds like they're saying it, and so forth. But even with that in place, and some of these dogs are big dogs, some of them are small dogs. So deep voices, low voice, high-pitched voices, and so forth. But none of them have that guttural sound that we heard in these clips. Not to that degree and not to that tone. A dog tends to run more of a brrr sound,
right.
Not exactly that, but tends to blend together versus the breaking apart of the guttural sound that we heard in the tapes.
With syllables.
Yeah.
Yeah, intentional syllables.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't. I am truly believing that there is some kind of language going on there.
Yep. I would like to back to the first one again. And I know today is a lot of just kind of sounds and general discussion. We've been off for 3 weeks. It's our first week back. Cecil's been, as you can see over there, he got into a fight and threw that right hand a little too hard.
Yeah, so the doctor cut it off and set it back up. But
so today we just kind of wanted to get in and talk a little bit and put a few things out there and work with some of our new equipment. We were talking the last couple of weeks. I kept promising we're going to have audio clips and video clips, and this is just kind of an answer to that promise.
Right.
And we it was quickly done just to see that we can do it and then it works. But this is showing you that we have more stuff coming, and it's just going to get better. It really is. So having said, man, this is nice to be able to just refer to the sounds and not just talk about them.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
Yes, I like this.
So we're going to, if it's all right with you, Cecil, we're going to go back to that very first sound. And the reason I want to go back to that sound, we played it right off the bat and we talked about it and then we move forward. Now we've got about 20 minutes. We've been talking about sounds and syllables and how to create and affect those sounds and tones. Now I want to go back to that first one and listen to it again, because we even said it kind of sounded dog-like, but let's listen to it now with those new ears. That's no dog.
Some of it even sounded a little bit more bear-like than dog-like to me.
It even sounds human-like in some places.
Yes, well, especially that sound, because I have sleep apnea, so sometimes when I speak and I don't catch myself, I make that sound inadvertently.
Uh-huh.
And
it's part of Sasquatch, people.
I'm part Sasquatch. I was just born without the legs.
We found him, folks. End of the show. Have a good night.
But it's the sound is similar, but not just exactly alike. And
like you referred to monkey-like.
Yeah,
not like a monkey,
exactly.
but monkey-like.
It's I can do that sound a little bit, and if I were to really try, I could probably do a better job of it. But I'm not interested in that. I'm just trying to point out that part of it could be human-made.
Mm-hmm.
All right, touche, it could be, but the rest of it, I don't see how. Just don't get it. There's too much variation. I've seen things like, who was it? Richard Pryor and, I can't think of this guy's name, dark-haired fellow, made a battleship disappear and all this kind of stuff. And he could do some pretty crazy noises and stuff. But even at his wildest, I never heard anything like this.
Yeah. Michael Winslow.
No, it's a very extremely popular one that was really going strong for a while, and then he dropped out.
Mm. One thing I found interesting when we played it back, there was no questioning that was not a dog.
No.
So we talked last week about infrasound and those frequencies going above and below. So let's one last time. Let's put on our imaginative hearing aids. I would say thinking caps, but we're getting old, Cecil, so we'll say hearing aids. I'll
have you know I resemble that remark.
I had a birthday since we were here. I got another year older. I'm encroaching on 50 fast.
Well, you just had a birthday?
Yeah.
I'm about to have a birthday.
Yeah.
The 8th of June.
Yeah.
And
my son's is the 9th.
Yeah. I'll be a whopping 73 in June.
You don't look a day over 72.
I usually tell people I don't look too bad for 103. So,
I've been smoking and drinking, and I feel fine for 26.
Yeah.
So one last time. Now we're gonna imagine one more time. I keep saying one last time, and then I play it again, don't I? So let's imagine two creatures. Okay. So let's say that there's two. However, the high end of their vocal range is cut out. We don't register it. We can't hear it. The low end of the vocal range is cut out, right? Because our hearing frequencies can't go that far. This played real well last night when I was at work. I was playing one of the sounds for one of my coworkers, and she couldn't hear it. It just happened to be one of those frequencies that you lose as you age. She couldn't hear it. Now, the other lady that was sitting with us is 29 years old, and she said that's the most annoying sound in the world.
Yeah.
And the other lady couldn't even hear it at all. So imagine, like I said, two creatures, frequencies going above and below what you can hear. So you're only hearing like basically a partial mix of the two.
Right.
You hear that choppy, almost blocky. So if we were missing a lot of that sound when what sounds like either the younger or maybe the female, the higher pitch, when it goes up, it's very choppy. So that might almost cascade and fall a lot more, giving that more sing-song linguistic sound than the choppiness that we hear. Same thing with the more masculine or deep one. It could be going, it doesn't sound like it does, but it could be going lower, also creating more of a flow, a harmonic flow with the language. You didn't know we were going to be doing sounds all day, did you?
No, I didn't, but that's okay with me. I'm glad to add this to the program.
Yeah, I've got a lot of others. I would like for us to listen to the Ohio Call. I know we're all familiar with it. It starts some of our favorite shows and podcasts. But what makes that one interesting too, because it's so long, like the set of lungs you would have to do that one is called the Ohio Call. There's a lot of sounds that you want. Your instinct is to just dismiss it. You're like, it could be anything. Yeah, it could. And things are so easy to fake right now. But they weren't easy to fake. This discussion happened this morning. They weren't easy to fake even in the 60s.
Correct.
When the Patterson-Gimlin film was recorded, things weren't as easy to fake. Go back even farther. I mean, as far back as you want to go, there is stories and legends. I was watching a show this afternoon, Cecil, and they had a Native American mask. It could have been Canadian, now that I think about it. It could have been in Canada. But it was a mask. You know, they wore a lot of masks for ceremonies and dance. But the mask was an ape. How would any Native North American culture know what an ape was 400 years ago? And that's clearly what it is. It's clearly a monkey mask. How would they know that?
I can't see how it'd be possible.
Unless they saw it. They had, and people say, well, it's, they're on their totem poles. Well, it's a myth. How do they all have the same myth? I just don't, that doesn't resonate. That has to start from somewhere.
Well, talking about it being a myth, if you will, for just a second, think about this. They talk about all these things being mass hysteria, and they said the exact same things about UFOs, and now we have UFO TikToks running around with the Navy and Air Force having clips of them on their radar and film and showing it on national TV and stuff. It's no longer a myth, it's a reality.
Pentagon press release.
Yes. And so, and those were all myths. Those were all mass hysteria, just like they're saying about the Bigfoot.
Mountain gorilla.
And the mountain gorilla. Oh, yeah, they said that too about the mountain gorilla. And then they went out into the jungles and the mountains and found the actual gorillas. And I believe that was Jane Goodall, wasn't it, that went out and lived with them for a while and documented their existence and filmed them and such.
Jane Goodall, who happens to believe there could be a Bigfoot also. Just for the record. Yeah, she's a supporter of the idea. She doesn't believe they are out there. She's a supporter that they could be out there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it runs so deep because not only is it possible that it's out there, it's almost likely. But you feel foolish when you say it. Why do you feel foolish when you say it? Because you're made to feel foolish when you say it. Oh, you believe in Bigfoot. Oh, you believe in UFOs. Right off the bat, you're labeled, right? But they would call me a conspiracy theorist. Maybe that's what we're doing here.
Maybe.
If I'm the government, though, and my primary concern is to make money, I do not want Bigfoot. I don't want there to be a Bigfoot because it's going to cost me a lot of money.
Yep.
Forestry, timber, water, land, rights of ways, and a protect. Remember those? Was it the snow owl?
Yeah.
Protected species. It costs a lot of money.
Yep.
I mean, it's just a theory. I'm not saying that's the way it is, but it makes sense for the reason that it would be shut down.
It's almost scary when you think about the stuff the government goes to do and everything. It's not almost scary. It is scary.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that individuals in government are willing to do to control us and dominate us,
mm-hmm.
and in some ways ruin a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so forth, and that's not conspiracy. That's reality. It happens every day. And I heard something on the news about digital currency coming into play in July or something like that. Yeah. And I hope to God that that's not true.
Yeah.
But if it is, then the government will have full knowledge of every penny, every last cent that you spend or get.
Not just knowledge, they'll have access to it.
That too. So with that in mind, we all know that the government is not truly for us. Mm-hmm. Sadly enough to say, but it's not. So with that in mind, I don't trust anything that they have to say that says Bigfoot is not real or UFOs are not real, or for that matter, I don't trust them when they tell me that it's 4:00 in the afternoon. And
you can't trust that because they change the time. It's 4:00 unless you're over here, or if you're over there, then it's a different time.
Exactly.
Or if it's a different time of year, then we're going to change it again.
Now we're getting a full-fledged conspiracy theories.
There we go.
But no, seriously speaking, I have seen too many videos that have such a strong realism. I've heard so many sounds that have strong realism to them, and I have seen, and I'm nowhere near as deep into it as Bill is, although I'm getting
approaching.
deeper. But still, even at that, I've still seen so many eyewitnesses and so forth, people talking about that. I saw the beginnings of one today, Sullivan's Creek, and the guy was sitting there talking about how they were just getting ready to do something, and all of a sudden these things happened, and there was this Bigfoot off in the distance. And why would they make that up? Guy's not making any money off of that video.
And by nature, he's going to be labeled as a kook.
Exactly.
What's he benefiting?
Yeah. So I don't know. I just don't know.
And we have reports from doctors and lawyers and scientists and biologists. And again, we go back to guys like Jeff Meldrum, who's why would a professor of anthropology come out with something like that and risk his whole credibility unless he was 100% sure?
Exactly.
It's not for him. It's working because he has credibility. Les Stroud from Survivor Band. Why would he do that? Unless he's the guy that's been out there. I don't care who you are listening to this. Les has been out there more than you, and for a year at a time, year and a half at a time. He and his wife spent a year and a half out of a school bus. Didn't see another person for a year and a half. That guy knows the wilderness.
Yeah.
And if he says there's a chance, like I believe him. He doesn't say it's out there. He says there's a chance it's out there.
Yeah, and we were talking about the naysayers a little bit ago, and when I told some friends I would be doing this podcast about Bigfoot, and they said, "Oh, did the aliens introduce him to you?" And yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
there's so much
perfect case.
There's so much negativity out there, and there's people that still believe the Earth is flat.
Yeah.
I mean,
bless their heart.
For real, honest, there are.
For real.
And, God help them, and God bless them, too.
I know.
But It's just ridiculous. There's people that still believe that the moon landing was faked and shot in a studio here on Earth, and with all the different rockets that have gone up, all the different astronauts that have gone up, and all the different views that you see, camera views and video views around the moon and looking back at the Earth. To look at the Earth from the moon and see this big blue marble is like, how in the world would you fake that?
My wife and I were getting out of the car not long ago, and we saw, was it Starlink? Have you seen that thing in the sky?
Oh, the space station?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen it fly over you?
Once.
Oh, I thought for sure. I'm like, there it is. There's another UFO. And then I realized what it was.
Yeah.
But we got that thing up there with people living on it.
Yeah.
Like, they're not in a studio. Like, they're legitimately up there.
Well, and then we have the Space Force developing.
Yeah. I saw one of those guys.
I think it is.
Oh, we got him at Right Pat.
And yeah,
I saw him. I was next to one at Speedway the other day, and it was cool. Like, his patch was there. He was in a Space Force uniform.
Well, I did not.
At Right Pat.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they have a black patch. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. But anyways, this is something that's happening. Elon Musk and others are developing rockets that can go out and come back and land and stuff. They've been successful mostly. Chinese, or Japanese rather, have been to the far side of the moon, and to my understanding, have set up a base over there. And so it's like, these things are happening. All right, the world is exploding with new information, and you have people sitting back and saying naysay, and
I think it comes from fear.
Fear and sometimes just plain ignorance.
Yeah,
sometimes, but I think it's probably, you're right, more about fear than anything.
Yeah, I think. I've been rolling this over as we were talking. It just keeps coming through my mind, so I'm going to put it out there. We were talking about like a government conspiracy with Bigfoot. First of all, I think the real government is not Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
I don't either.
So whoever the real government is, I think that's who's pulling the strings. I don't think these people in the office, they're just puppets to distract us from whatever, and they're doing a good job. So let's take the two concepts, Bigfoot and UFOs. 20 years ago, if you talked about either one, you were a kook.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if you talk about Bigfoot, you're a kook. But if you talk about UFOs, you have science backing you. Just in the past couple years,
right.
We got the Pentagon. So what's the difference there? The difference to me is a UFO is something that cannot be controlled if it doesn't want to be. A Bigfoot, they can just determine that footage, and unless we get that body, that that DNA specimen that everybody claims they have to have, we're not going to know. But if UFOs are like, hey, we're coming, we'll be there on Tuesday, well, now the government has until Tuesday to figure out how to let us know they're coming. You know what I mean?
Or to figure out how to tell us they're not coming and surprise us.
Right. So that's where I think we have this with the release of the Tic Tac and the gimbal footage and the Go Fast. Colonel Favor, the guy that had the Tic Tac footage, he said they were seeing these things often, but this was the most, the closest interaction they had with it. I'm sure that they try to control the information, to control the fear, however they want to use it, until they can't contain it. And I think that's what's happening with the UFO thing. And I think that's what's going to happen rapidly. Once there's wind of a Bigfoot DNA, you're going to start by hearing, oh, well, it turns out the orang pendek in Indonesia, we found one. It's a real thing. Oh, and it turns out there's actually, we thought it was made up, but there's a Yeren. Yeah. In Australia, we found one. There's 2 or 3 of them. I can't believe it. And that's how it's going to happen. Is this a new species? We don't know. It's going to be on National Geographic, and it's going to be presented to you in such a way that, well, we knew this was here all along. It's not really Bigfoot. It's Bigfoot-like. You know what I mean? And that's how they're going to release it until it's smacked in their face, just like the Tic Tac video did. You cannot. There it is. there it is. You know.
Yep.
All right, I'll get off my soapbox now, Cecil. I haven't got to rant in a while.
No, I like it. I was getting a kick out of it. No, I think you were dead on, to be honest with you. And yeah. Anyways, all that stuff really about the government really concerns me. But then I'm just an old Vietnam veteran that firmly believes in patriotism and truth. Truth is the absolute thing to do, and deception is one thing that sets me off faster than anything you could do. You could hit me in the nose with your fist, and it wouldn't set me off as fast as telling me a lie and me knowing it.
Yeah.
Just a fact. It's just the way it is with me.
I think without truth and openness, you can't have liberty. You can't have freedom. You can't have democracy without truth. And right now, unfortunately, I fear in our country we don't have any of those things. And some of you have seen my boy. He sits in here. Sometimes he helps Liberty with cameras and lights. He's 9. I worry about the world that he's going to go into.
Yeah.
And then my other guy, he's going to turn 6 next month. I worry about the world that they're going into. It's going to go one of two ways. Either all of these amazing, tremendous, wonderful things that we know are available are going to come forth, or they're not.
Or it's going to go in a different direction.
That's not. If those wonderful things don't come forth, that's the bad side. It's going to be bad.
Folks, we're going to wrap it up with that.
Yes, we are.
Good day, good night, wherever you are. God bless, and hope to have you listen to us the next time.
I hope so too.
Goodbye.